Hello humans, today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January of 2016. In the year of 2016, I'm going to be bringing you guys wrap-up videos. Almost every single booktuber does wrap-up videos, but here's the reason why I like them. Basically, at the end of each month, I can summarize the books that I read and the ones I liked and the ones I didn't like. Basically, I can kind of do little reviews of each book that I read each month. And I can discuss them with you, and hopefully in the comments we can discuss the books that you guys have read and just have a good old discussion going about books. So without further ado, let's get started. So I kicked off the year 2016 by reading a book by one of my favorite authors, and that is Brandon Sanderson, and the book is Steelheart. For those of you who don't know, Steelheart is a dystopian novel, and if you have watched any of my previous videos, you know that I have been burnt out on dystopian and I almost kind of hate it. Brandon Sanderson revived dystopian for me. I don't know why. I was hesitant to pick this up. I was hesitant to pick up a book by my all-time favorite author simply due to the fact that it was a dystopian. But I trust Brandon Sanderson and he did not disappoint me. It was very, very good. Basically, in this book, it's a dystopian society set in the future, and people have superpowers, and instead of being heroic and saving the day like you think most superheroes would do, these superheroes are kind of douches. As a matter of fact, they're actually villains, and there is not one person in the society who has a superpower that will protect the innocent. Basically, all the superheroes want to kill the civilians. Yep, it's that kind of book. Brandon Sanderson's writing is amazing. His characters, I don't know a lot about them yet. I'm hoping that I'll get to know more because there's 2 more books, but I did love the main character and a couple of other characters, and I'm excited to move on to Firefight. The second book I read in 2015 was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is my first Maggie Stiefvater book. I have not read the Shiver trilogy. To be honest, I've heard a lot of mixed things about the Shiver trilogy and how the characters kind of suck, but I have never read them, so I can't judge for myself. But yes, my first Maggie Stiefvater, The Raven Boys, and let me tell you, I was not disappointed. This is one of those books where I did not want to put it down. I wanted to know what was going to happen next. I still want to know what's going to happen next. Trying to explain what this book is about is very complicated because it's a very complicated magic system, but basically it's almost like a King Arthur story with a group of teenagers, but it's not King Arthur, and it's a lot more interesting. If you haven't read anything by Maggie Stiefvater, I would definitely recommend The Raven Boys. I plan on continuing the series, and I'm excited to see how it wraps up because the final book comes out this year. The third book I read in January 2016 was Tintin Volume 2. My friend recommended for me to read the Tintin volumes. This is volume number 1, and then I bought volume number 2. And let me tell you, if you're in for a fun, light, exciting, action-packed read, I definitely recommend Tintin. But man, these comics are just very wonderful. The stories, they're really old comics, you know, but the stories still hold up, and it's kind of fun to go back in time and see what the world was like then and watch him solve all these mysteries. If you're in for a good mystery and a break from like the everyday books that you read and you want something different and more visually enticing, I would recommend the Tintin. The fourth book I read this year is Passenger by Alexander Bracken. For those of you who follow the Booksplosion group, this is the Booksplosion book of the month, and let me tell you, it did not disappoint me either. I love Passenger. I give it a 4.5 stars out of 5, and to tell you about it, I'm just gonna give you 2 sentences. First sentence is time travel. Second sentence is pirates. Okay, third sentence. Third sentence is treasure hunt. A treasure hunt in time with pirates. Are you sold yet? And if you read The Darkest Minds, Alexander Bracken, that can be your 4th sentence. Alexander Bracken. My 5th sentence is read this book now because it was phenomenal. I really don't have that much to say. It's about this girl who goes back in time, and it's just a crazy adventure, and it's fun, and there's just going to be 1 more book because it's a duology, and Alexander Bracken's writing is phenomenal, and I just loved Passenger, and I'm so looking forward to seeing where this series goes. The 5th book I read this year was none other than Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I read this book primarily because of the reason that I have never heard such mixed reviews on a book in my entire life. I have seen reviewers talk about how much they hate this book, and I have seen reviewers talk about how much they love this book. Thankfully, a review came out by one of my favorite booktubers, Cash J. Tuck, and she kind of put things into a certain light. And because of that, I read this book, and to be honest, I kind of liked it. And I can see why some people kind of hated it. First off, the world in this book is amazing. The society, the politics, the themes, there's a lot of depth in this world and a lot of interesting hierarchy. If you're into good world building and you're into good politics and good conflicts, this is a great book for that. But the characters suck, and the romance sucks big time. So I think that's why a lot of people were turned off by this, because honestly, I don't blame them. If you don't have a good character that you care about to carry you through the plot, I can see why most people want to throw this book out a window. However, if you know that there are 3 more books coming and you hope that there's more room for character development and you really, really love the world and the system that this has, I can see why some people love this and have high hopes for it. So yes, I would give this, I don't even know what to rate this. It's almost like a solid 4-star book, but since the characters suck, I want to go with 3.8 stars, but then I kind of want to go with 4.2 stars because of the world, so I just don't know what to rate this book. But if you are in for a conflicting and controversial read between booktubers and all book readers alike, I would recommend Red Queen. And honestly, if you have read this book, comment below and tell me your opinions on this, because I would love to discuss this with people. The 6th book I read in January was The Invention of Wings by Sue Monk Kidd. This is a historical fiction taking place in like the 1800s. And it follows a young girl. Whose mother owns slaves, and she has this severe stutter and she's very shy and very quiet. But she is fiercely against slavery, and as her life develops, you get to see her life go by. You can see how she grows into a confident person trying to help abolish slavery. And it also involves a slave girl who her mother owns that is a year younger than her, and kind of her journey. On the flip side, this slave is very outgoing, very confident, and very vocal, and she gets in trouble for it, obviously, because she's a slave. But it's an interesting relationship between a privileged girl in this time period and a slave in this time period, where the slave is very outgoing and the privileged girl is very shy and stutters and has a hard time talking. The relationship in this is beautiful, and it just builds and builds, and there's other characters, and it's a very well written historical fiction. If you love historical fiction or want to get back into it, or if you love this time period, I recommend The Invention of Wings. Sue Monk Kidd also wrote The Secret Life of Bees, for those of you who probably had to read that in school. So yes, The Invention of Wings. And the final book that I read in January was none other than The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. For those of you who don't know, I do this thing every month where I have a fantasy pick-along. And basically I pick one fantasy book to read a month, and this was a monster. It is 1,000 pages. It is about as thick as my favorite books ever, The Way of Kings and the Word of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Those took a long time to read, and this definitely took a long time to read. But basically the way I do this is that if it's 1,000 pages, I read 50 pages a day. Just 50 pages a day. You read it, you set it aside. If you want to read more, you can. If you don't want to read more, you kind of have to read 20 extra pages the next day. But I went through this very evenly, and let me tell you, I love this. The Kingkiller Chronicles are phenomenal. If you are into a series, pick up The Name of the Wind. That is the first book, and you will not be disappointed. Like I said, it is long, but it's also pretty quickly paced. Sometimes it takes its time, and you hit some slower moments, but they're actually needed and they're very enjoyable. And the writing is phenomenal, and the character is one of the most interesting fantasy characters I've read in a long time. So yes, The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. So, those are all the books I read in January. Can you see them? Can you see them? Do, 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 do. So yes, those are all the books I read in January. You guys should comment below and tell me what your favorite read of the month was. And if you have read Red Queen or any of these other books, comment below and talk to me about them, because I love to talk about books, obviously. That's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.